if you have that plan B in mind, it's very easy to fall back and just say, oh, okay, I've given it a go. I've been here for 3 months, 6 months. And we see it happen all the time. People come, they run out of money, do whatever.
So 4 years ago, I was sat opposite my next guest at House. We were working in the Tilal team, calling owners day and night until our ears hurt, both convinced that we were going to crack Tilal Al Ghaf. He stayed, I left, and a year later he followed me, and now we're building a team at the same agency at EXP. He's 27, I'm 51. On paper, we shouldn't be friends, but he's probably one of the only people I'd take a phone call from day or night. So
That's because no one else answers.
Oh, nobody else phones me, you mean?
No one else answers my calls.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. So I know there's plenty of women that answer your phone call, mate. Yeah, I'd say
Not
so.
sure about that.
Yeah. Well, my name's Michael. Welcome to the Rebel Agent podcast. I'm standing in for Mr. Dave Allen, who's very kindly given me a seat to interview my good friend and colleague, Luke Wellens.
Pleasure to be here. Yeah, big thanks to Dave as well.
Talk me through how you got to Dubai and what made you come to Dubai and go into real estate.
It was a very spontaneous kind of decision in the end. I actually moved during COVID, in the early days of COVID. And at the time I was running a printing business back home in the UK. Mm-hmm. Hadn't thought about Dubai, hadn't really even...
You were running a printing business. What age were you?
So I started that business around 17 years old.
Okay.
And I ran it for around 4 years. So it was just before my 22nd birthday that I think what actually happened was I was scrolling somewhere online. I saw something for House Dubai pop up, clicked on it. Never thought about Dubai before, never kind of even...
No friends out here?
One mutual who I didn't really speak to.
Right.
Who I ended up kind of consulting slightly.
Yeah.
Other than that, no friends out here, no family, never been. My family had never been. I didn't even know what was going on in this city, truthfully. I was just like, that sounds interesting. Let me click on that. So I've clicked on it, went in, had a look. And then one thing led to another. I kind of filled out the text box which came along with it. And obviously, don't get me wrong, the House kind of advertising was good. They not sold the dream as such, it was realistic, but they obviously highlighted the benefits, let's say. So I was like, okay, let me have a look. Nothing was wrong with my business at the time. It was going okay. COVID actually boosted the sales in printing, so it wasn't a huge issue, but I just kind of wanted a new challenge to push myself further, if that makes sense.
So you've never been employed for anybody, right? And you haven't had a CV, you haven't gone through the whole interview process, but you turned up in Dubai and you met with who at House?
Not quite. So you're correct in saying I never had a CV. I didn't have a CV actually when I spoke to them. But how it happened is I filled out the text box. A couple of days later, I think it was Charisse at the time. I don't know if she was there when you were there, but reached out via email. Okay, can you send us a 5-minute video just telling us about yourself? So without even thinking about it, didn't change my clothes, nothing. I think I was in a t-shirt, put my phone up. I was like, hello, this is me. Rambled for 5 minutes. Next day had an interview, a Zoom interview. And then it was a final stage interview, I think, with Tom Pulser, maybe at the time. I think he was the leasing director back in them days. And then, within the space of a few days, I'd signed the contract and I was moving in a month.
And what did your family think?
Well, it was obviously a shock because I did the whole thing without saying a word. I didn't mention to them that I was doing these interviews, that I'd sent this message, etc. So it was a bit of a shock, but luckily I come from a very supportive family. So the second they saw I was serious about it, they were like, okay,
go for it.
Best of luck. The only thing my dad said, and I vividly remember this, he said, absolutely. He was like, go for it, son. He was like, but what's your plan B? And I was like, I don't have one. I don't have one.
Right.
It has to work. So, yeah.
And has that been a theme? No plan B, or are you generally impulsive?
I'm generally actually quite calculated. I think you know this. I'm pretty calculated in my decisions.
Yeah.
But I mix that with a bit of spontaneity. Yeah. In terms of the plan B, no, I don't believe in having a plan B because I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
If I'm going to do something, I commit. And then if it goes wrong, I will figure it out.
And you started in the Marina team, was that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leasing?
Yeah, so I did leasing for around 4 months, 3 to 4 months, and then I transitioned over to sales. So they give you a 30-day window where you're still doing some leasing just to get a bit of volume, cash flow, whilst you're also learning the ropes in sales. And from then on, it's been sales.
A lot of agencies say that you go into leasing, you learn the market, you learn buildings, the community, and then you move into sales.
Yeah.
You'd agree that's the right approach?
I think for a lot of people, yeah. I mean, obviously, we've both seen people come directly into sales and make a killing, but I think...
Well, we've also seen people fail.
That's where I was going to go. I think more often than not, they probably would fail if they jump straight into sales, because you build those connections in leasing. As you say, you learn the market. More importantly, especially for new agents coming from the UK, if I use myself as the example, it's also important for cash flow. You've got to survive here, right? So for the first few months in sales, it's quite hard to get your feet off the ground. But within lease, when it comes to leasing, you can go after 2 weeks and pick up a couple of deals. Just like this is much higher volume, much quicker transactions.
So I turned up at House and House, and Charlie introduced us. It was only you and the Tilal team.
Yeah.
So you were Mr. Tilal. What did you think when you first met me?
No, to be fair, Charlie gave you a very good build up.
Right.
He showed me a LinkedIn post at the time and everything. And then when you turned up, I was thinking, I'm not sure if this guy's gonna, because it's a lot of cold calling, especially when you first start. And I was thinking, so this guy is, who's this fossil coming into?
Fossil?
No, I'm kidding. But I was thinking, honestly, most people come in and they don't want to make 50, 100 calls in a day, which is at the time what we were spending most of our days doing, right?
Yeah.
And that was the one thing. And it's the same when any new agent comes in, you wonder, do they really kind of have the minerals to
make the calls,
to make those calls? Because you're getting shouted at by people, screamed at in some cases, reported. It's not pleasant when you first move over and you're not used to this aspect, and nobody tells you about it. That's the thing. Nobody sits you down and says, this is the types of people you're gonna have to be dealing with. Sometimes you have to make this many calls in a day, and sometimes it's for zero.
So you're saying you looked at me, you made the assumption that this guy doesn't have the minerals, as you say, right?
I saw the greys and I was like,
mate, there's a lot more greys than there is.
Yeah,
there was.
To be fair, at that time there wasn't many, but I was thinking you might have to have your little midday nappy.
I still have my midday nap. Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to the system, no doubt.
Oh, I had the same thing when that first week was one of the toughest for me. I considered, is this actually what I want to do day to day? This many calls, this many.
See, I'd done door-to-door sales in my 20s
in Australia. Yeah,
rejection was something I was well used to.
Yeah. And that's why I always say that I learned from, despite the fact I was teaching you maybe the CRM and the rules of real estate, I learned a lot from hearing you on the phones, despite the fact I'd been doing it for a couple of years.
Do you know my first call, I'll never forget it. It was, I went through the list and I was thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? And then I saw an Irish name and I phoned this Irish lady, lovely lady. And she said to me, you should speak to my husband. And he was an owner, and next week I met with him, and I was playing golf with him last week.
Really?
Yeah, Brendan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Brendan?
That's Brendan. Yeah.
Okay, so I remember that exact moment when you scroll. It says the countries.
That was how I got over my nervousness of making the first call.
Yeah.
Find an Irish person and speak to them.
I do remember that being, because it says the country that they're from on our spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
I remember you scrolling through, highlighting all of the
I cheated a little bit.
Using the Irish charm.
Yeah, it was full on. There's no question. We don't do cold calling now, and we weren't properly cold calling there. These were all warm leads, so technically legal, right? In the database.
100%.
We don't do cold calling now, really. It's we've got a network or a client base that you tap into.
Yeah.
But it does take time, right, to build that up.
100%. And I think also you're never going to, if you're doing, let's call it warm calling from the CRM or from existing contacts, whatever, it's always going to be beneficial. But yeah, I think the idea for most agents is to reach a point where you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I've never met anyone who's dying to make cold calls.
And are you still talking to any of those leasing landlords or owners that...
Yes.
You are?
Yeah.
Right. That proves then that it makes sense.
100%. Some of our best clients to this day are the people who are picked up in those first 3-4 months of leasing.
Yeah. Some great agents at House and House.
Yeah.
Who did you look at and go, that's what I want to get to, or that's what I want to achieve?
It's a good question. There are a lot of top performing agents there. I'd probably say, when you ask that question first, it comes to mind is actually Cahill.
Right. Yeah.
he's the example they use in the training, right? And I think just as a new agent, if you want to look at someone in terms of how to be structured, how to go about your day, he's a very good starting point to look
and he's
at.
Irish, so that's already he's an advantage.
There you go.
Yeah.
But he's extremely regimented. I mean, people in the office call him a robot, right? Like he works like a robot. You'll never see him fall out of that structure. And I think when you're a new agent, particularly, that's very important to kind of learn the ropes.
How long were you in Marina?
3 years, 2.5, 3 years. Again, when I was doing Marina and I moved to Tilal Al Ghaf, there was that same transition period of a couple of months. So I took my stock with me and then slowly but surely transitioned only to tag.
Charlie told you that they had this guy joining from Ireland who was going to come in and shake things up. And then I turned up.
Yeah.
So,
no, in fairness, Charlie did give you a very good, a good kind of build up. I remember he showed me your LinkedIn posts and he was like, because it was only me on the Tilal team at the time. And he was like, you've got one guy joining. He was like, one guy's coming. I was like, oh, happy days. He showed me a LinkedIn post and he was like, look at this, absolutely class. Because at the time you were putting these big paragraphs. And yeah. So I remember.
So, I mean, you know this, but funny story. I've just done a deal with Charlie, actually. I've just bought, on behalf of a client, one of his properties. There you go. Right. So, so I came in and we started to call the owners at Tilal and many late nights, right? But you know what? It was good. It was good fun.
It was. I think it's important, like the fact that we became close pretty quickly. It is important to have that around you, especially when you're a new agent or a newer agent, let's say. To be able to bounce off of you. I mean, how... In
fairness to you, you were very generous with your time and you did give me a lot of support early on.
As I say, it goes back to that same thing. We were bouncing ideas off of each other. No, I also had a lot to learn from you in terms of how you communicated on the phone. Because whilst I knew the system, you still helped me in terms of how to communicate with people differently because you've got a lot of experience with that side of things, right?
That's 51 years, I suppose.
Oof, yeah, there you go.
There you go. I then left. And I went to Phoenix. You stayed on for a bit.
Yeah.
And then, what was it, about a year later you joined Phoenix, or maybe 7 or 8 months?
It was 9, 10 months, somewhere there.
And when was it that you realized that actually, or what was it that made you think, right, okay, it's now time to move to a model that rewarded you as the agent much, much better than the current model that you were on? Because you'd been at house for 4 years.
Yeah. 3.5, I think it was, 3.5 total. I mean, look, I think realistically, if you were to ask most agents in the big agencies, it's something that always comes and goes from your mind. And with the likes of Haus, I always say I've got nothing bad to say, but I think it's a great agency. I think the way that they're set up is actually one of the best in terms of systems, and the support there is fantastic. So there's a lot of benefits to being there, and that's why it's hard to leave, right? Right.
And a lot of people will say, the big brand is so important, right? Because they're with the big brand.
Yeah.
But is it that important?
It is and isn't, and it isn't.
Right.
I think particularly for a newer agent, you can get a lot of leverage from that brand. The marketing obviously is good. They have a big budget for the marketing. You can use that brand name, which in some cases, yes, the owners and the buyers and the sellers will be familiar with it, and you already earn that trust from the beginning. But I think as you grow as an agent, you should be trying to build that personal brand, whether that's through social media or just word of mouth through your own connections. I think over time it becomes much kind of less relevant.
So what you're saying is, even if you hadn't met me, you would have still left?
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
You don't think so, do you?
Well, no, I think I accelerated it a little bit. But yeah. So Phoenix then, where you were still selling Tilal, but generally you were in the market working with buyers and sellers. And what was the biggest change leaving the likes of a big brand agency, corporate agency like Haus & Haus, to a much smaller boutique agency like Phoenix? What was the biggest?
I guess it's just the flexibility, to be honest. The biggest difference that you'll notice from a corporate high street agency to the likes of a Phoenix or an EXP now is the way that it works is completely different in terms of there's nobody, not that there was people breathing over your neck, there's not. But you don't have that management in place, right? You're kind of much more self-sufficient. You can do what you want. You can bill in any area. You can list in any area.
Off-plan, secondary, leasing, even if you want it, right?
Which for some people, I guess, would probably send them down a path which maybe wouldn't be too beneficial. But I think for the likes of us and the way that we work, and it's much more of an entrepreneurial approach, it suits.
Yeah.
And you obviously pay for your own marketing. You're much more involved with the back end side of stuff. The CRM doesn't work the same way. So you don't have people trying to shark your listings and vice versa. And so there's a lot of small kind of intricacies like that I think are different. And they work for some, they don't work for some.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's just the freedom and the flexibility.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just that the fact that you can make so much more money on that type of model.
Yeah.
But we didn't stay there, did we?
Well, no, we didn't.
I didn't stay there. I left after a year, and then you again followed me. There's a theme here, clearly.
Yep. After a year of you here again.
Yeah. So I definitely worked hard on you, but this is what I said, where you were spontaneous in jumping to Dubai, less spontaneous in actually switching agencies.
Correct.
But I think it's a challenging. It's not easy to get agents to switch agencies.
No.
It's not, because it's very easy to get into a habit and a routine and comfort and safety, and you know the systems that agency has. But are you glad then that you did make the move to EXP?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. In retrospect, I would have done it sooner, but I think both of us are always going to say that, right? It's
no, for sure, for me as well. I mean, I regret not moving sooner,
but with that being said, I think the experience I got from both agencies that I have worked for has been fantastic.
Yeah, you get a lot from it.
I've got nothing bad to say about either. It's not to avoid confrontation. I think they're genuinely both good agencies. I like everyone who's there. So it's not a case of this was bad. It's just a case of where we are now is better, certainly for me. Yeah.
So, and you sell off-plan secondary now. What? Tell me about what your. I mean, I know what you do, but tell me anyway.
Again, beauty with the XP, you can do whatever you want. So you can do leasing, secondary, off-plan, any area. You can literally do anything.
So if I forced you to say you're only allowed to sell one thing on one project from now until the end of 2027, what project would you sell?
Project, when you say one thing, do you mean secondary or off-plan? Or do you mean
secondary and off-plan. And then within that, what project would you focus on if you were told to be?
That's a tough question. I'd reluctantly drop off-plan. So if forget about leasing, because off-plan or secondary sales would be the choices. Reluctantly, I would drop off-plan off, only because I think no matter what condition you find the market in, secondary is where you're always going to make money. People always need a place to stay.
Yeah.
People always need a place to live, right? And I mean, ultimately, over time, if you're saying forever, eventually there'll come a time when all of these prime plots are not going to be, they're going to be taken.
Yeah.
The off-plan are not, the off-plan's going to have to go back and back and back.
Yeah.
Not that that's a bad thing, but the prime residential plots are all going to go soon enough.
But I push back on this, because secondary has changed a lot since we were doing it back in at a house.
Yeah.
The level of competition within secondary is, even now, it's insane. So how do you differentiate yourself? How do you stand out when you're talking to owners, when you're talking to sellers, and when you're trying to break into a new community? What is the thing that makes you stand out from all of the other agents?
Just to touch on your first point, I love off-plan. So that's why I said reluctantly, because I do get your points on that. But in terms of the secondary side of things, yeah, it's competitive. Certainly in some communities, you get thousands of agents and it can be kind of, dog eat dog almost. But we both know, and no disrespect to a lot of agents, but the competition sometimes isn't actually too high. I think there's a lot of newer agents, and the bar for entry into real estate here is lower than it should be.
Yeah.
That I think that's a fact that everyone can agree on.
Yeah.
So I think oftentimes just being a decent person who follows up puts you ahead of most.
Right.
And then to jump into that next category, I think it's just a case of that following up, being genuine, being authentic, because people now, they can sniff out someone who's just after the money, who's just trying to push them onto a project and then forget about them. I think if you genuinely
I'm talking about specifically winning listings, though.
Specifically winning listings. Again, I think it just comes up to building relationships.
Yeah.
If you just genuinely keep in touch with people, don't pressure them, you be your authentic self and be honest with them, right? If, for example, during this situation now that we're in, I've had old owners reach out to me, and it would have been easy to maybe put a load of fear in their minds and say, I think you need to sell now. And sure, in the short term, maybe I can capitalize on that. But I think to maintain these long term and win those listings long term, you just have to be honest with them.
Yeah, of course.
Reason with them, speak to them like a friend or a family, as
and
opposed
understand
to
what's driving their reason for reaching out to you, and understand why they're concerned about the market and why they're concerned about if they're actually genuinely interested in selling.
Yes, exactly. That's a big one, because we spoke about this the other day. Actually, if you're speaking to a client and you're simply just focused on, okay, we're going to just sell this, I'm going to make this money, he's going to get it. You need to understand, okay, well, what's the motivation behind selling? Does he need it to pay something off? Because then it's a completely different conversation. So yeah, you're right. You need to definitely dig to that kind of core reason as to why they're considering it in the first place. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a client at the moment who's not in the country, but her husband has just got a promotion. He's working here, and she's adamant that she wants to buy and needs to buy quickly. And I started to look for her, but the reality is, she's rushing the decision. And I've said to her, "You're probably better renting for a year and taking your time over this, because you're going to get a good rent and you're going to get a good deal on your rentals." Yeah. So yeah, I think that's just genuinely looking at what's best for your client, right?
Exactly. And with that example you just given, a lot of agents would just jump on that. If someone says, yes, I want to buy now, yeah, sure, no worries, I'll service that. But I think, as we said, longer term picture, you've done the right thing.
Do you have a speciality, a niche that you focus on? You know, we started in Tilal. Do you still do Tilal? Are you looking at other communities?
No, look, I mean, I haven't really touched it too much since we kind of were doing it together. Naturally, I still get clients coming back and forth from time to time who I keep a good relationship with, but I moved much more onto the off-plan front. Saw a lot of opportunity there, obviously both as an agent, but also to offer value to clients. So much more heavily off-plan focused. I'm also now starting to work on the Valley. You know, I've just obviously invested and moved there myself. I see a lot of potential in that, so naturally it makes sense for me to start working there as well. And then additionally as well, I'm obviously starting more so on the off-plan side, starting to work with a lot of Iranian clients, just naturally learn some. I don't speak perfect Farsi, but I'm getting there. So
I was going to say this in the introduction, but I failed to, that you're fluent Farsi speaker.
Not fluent, but conversational at least. And I mean, look, you know, I absolutely love Iranian people, and they appreciate it when you can kind of speak the language. I think anyone does, right? When you speak to someone in their native tongue, it just connects much more. Language is ultimately just connection, right? And I've found with clients, they really enjoy that kind of dynamic, and obviously it builds trust and many other things, because I understand the culture and exactly kind of how they work. So, yeah.
How long did it take you to learn Farsi?
Well, I've been learning for around 2 years up to now. As I say, still actively kind of going down that path, but I've got enough now to get me through your day-to-day conversation. So, but yeah, it's still very much a work in progress.
So there's lots of added benefits to speaking Farsi in somewhere like the Middle East?
Loads. Yeah. I mean, push work aside for a second, there's a million benefits, and you know this. I absolutely love the culture, love the people, and then as far as work goes, that's just kind of a supplementary thing, which I didn't even initially think of, but naturally, I love working with them, they love working with me, so it works.
I was in your ear about EXP for a year.
That's an understatement.
What was your perception of it before you actually joined? What was the thing that you're skeptical about, or that, you know, sat where you were thinking, you know what, it's what was the big thing that was either stopping you or making you cautious about coming over and joining me at EXP? 3
things. Number one, you were in my ear that much. I was like, what's this guy getting out of it? Still at that point in time, I was like, it's still a bit dodgy, this Michael. Second thing, pyramid scheme. Right. And you see that you hear it all the time, you see it all the time, multi-level marketing, pyramid scheme. And let's be honest, if you just explain it in a very basic manner, it does appear to be that way. And it's only until someone like yourself or Dave, for example, who both of you at the time sat down, ran me through the actual ins and outs, the dynamic, like exactly how it kind of functions. Here's the maths. Here's what EXP keep on their pot. Here's the overheads. And also, we've got to point out, it's a publicly traded company. It's a publicly listed company, right? So you can literally go on, look at the financials, which I did at the time. And I was like, okay, they're heavily cash flow positive. Yeah. These are their overheads. This is how the actual revenue share, which we haven't gotten into yet, but this is how that model works. And there's that, right, okay. And you start slowly getting your head around it. And you're like, now I understand kind of, number one, why it's so attractive. And number two, why it's not a pyramid scheme as such.
Yeah.
And then I think the third thing was kind of, you get this anywhere, but I remember I said to you at the time, oh, like, look, I've looked at it in America and I've seen a couple of bad reviews here and there on Reddit or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's just down to the individual agents. And you
it's
can
also
say
down to the size of EXP. There's now we've 90,000 agents worldwide.
Yeah.
So you're not going to please everybody, but
no, you get, as I say, any corporation, you can find bad reviews. You can find, and ultimately most of the time that just comes down to the individual agents and not the company.
You're with EXP now, what, 6 months?
I think it's closer to 9 now.
Is it?
8, 9, yeah.
Wow. EXP, 8 or 9 months, and you've already started to build a team of agents.
Yeah.
You're still fairly new into EXP. What's been your biggest challenge?
It goes back to what we were saying earlier, I guess. Like it's hard for people to leave their agency, right? And I get it, because I was also in that position. So hence why I'm not too kind of pressure driven. Obviously, you just kind of put the model in front of people, let them simmer on it, let them go through the same process both of us kind of went through.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I think, well, we're seeing it now, even after 5-6 months of speaking to people. They're coming round, right? They reach back out and like, okay, now I understand it. Okay, I've just done a deal for $1 million dirhams, and why have I given away 500k of it when I could have been keeping the full thing potentially, or 80% minimum?
Yeah.
And then I think it starts to tick.
And especially when agents start to do the numbers over 1, 2, and 3 years, it's very easy.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to believe I'm in Dubai now nearly 4 years.
Yeah.
And when you work out exactly how much you give away to an agency, you start to put those numbers together, and it really does make a huge difference when you're on 100% commission.
For sure.
After your cap.
For sure.
And I think it takes time for people to see that, but once they do, that doesn't leave their head. Oh,
no way. And I think that's the thing. Like, a lot of agents that we speak to, they've never actually sat down and done these calculations. Yeah. It's like, okay, you hear 80%, you hear 100%, but you convert that into actual deal numbers, and you say, okay, if you do a 100,000 dirham deal, you're going to give 50%. You're going to give 50k of that 100k away right now where you are.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're at EXP, you're going to give 20k maximum.
Yeah.
When you actually just put it into tangible numbers you can look at in front of you, people are like, oh, okay, well, what am I actually getting from this place? And in some cases, okay, maybe they're getting leads, maybe they're getting, in that case, it makes sense. But I think oftentimes it's just
it also makes sense if they've got very limited experience in Dubai,
for sure.
Right? Because you do need to have a network, you do need to have a niche, you do need to have a way to win business.
Yeah.
And EXP, you're not tapping into a huge database of clients that you would have maybe at, say, some of the bigger agencies, but then all of the other agents at that agency are tapping into the same clients. So, it's not as valuable as some agents think, but you need to have some experience before you come across, right?
100%. You need to have experience, and you need to have a good plan and a good pipeline.
We've done roadshows. We've been to Delhi, Singapore, London. Are we going to do any more?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we were looking into it, weren't we? And then with this whole situation, it's kind of been put on a back burner for now, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, I think
what the thing with roadshows is you have to keep going back to a city. You can't just go to a city and expect to convert clients in your first meeting. And that's one of the big takeaways I've had from my experience of doing roadshows. It's all about, it comes down to the same thing. Relationships, building trust, proving value, and showing clients what they, what's possible and what's not possible. Because there's an awful lot of misinformation in the market.
Yeah.
So, good. And then in regards to building a team, what type of agents are you looking for? If you could put it out there as to the type of agent that you're looking to attract, do you have a profile or an avatar of somebody that you want to come?
Number one, experienced agents. It doesn't make sense, as you just said, for an inexperienced agent to start at EXP. So you need to have experience in the market. You need to have a good pipeline. And I think most importantly, you need to be somewhat entrepreneurial minded, because as we mentioned, it's very, very different to your high street model. You have full flexibility, which comes with its downsides, because if you're not of an entrepreneur mindset, you can get lost in that completely.
Yeah.
If you don't have to go to an office every day, if you don't have to report to a manager every day, like, people can drown in that, right? And it doesn't suit everyone. So I think for me, it's not only for my benefit, but also for the agent's benefit. If I see that they're not of that mindset, I'll be honest with them and say, look, it might not work for you, because last thing we want to do is bring people into the business who are going to fail, right?
For sure.
So,
yeah. So looking back over the last 5 or 6 years, could you believe it when you left Liverpool where you are now? You're 27. You've a couple of investment properties. You've just set up a refurbishment business?
Yeah. Just very recently started a renovation company, LNL Renovations.
We're now, 2.5, 3 months, I guess, into this conflict. And it's obviously had an impact on the market, and it's going to have a lasting effect for some time, no doubt about it. What's your take on how you see investors will view the region, and what are you hearing from the people you're talking to about whether or not Dubai is still a good place to invest?
Yeah, I think same as you said, it has had an effect already. We're seeing the volume of transactions decrease. I know there's a lot of posts going around saying that the transactions are still higher, but we both know some of those take months to actually transfer. So we're seeing a lot of people pause, stand on the sidelines, see what happens, see which way it goes. My personal take is people who are making smart investments now, I'm not just saying invest in anything, but you make smart decisions now whilst everything is unclear. I think it's the time to pick up some bargains.
So are you advising clients to buy ready or off plan?
Ready. I think off plan, there is still some opportunities, but I think you need to be careful with the payment plans, because predominantly what we're seeing with developers right now is offers on payment plans as opposed to purchase price.
Yeah, there's no discounts on developments.
Exactly. So whilst it comes across as a gift or a discount, at the end of the day, it's still just a financial lending instrument. You're becoming a small bank for that developer to finish the project.
Which is unique to the UAE.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not saying don't invest in off-plan. I sell it. I bought it.
Yeah.
I just think you need to be very careful with these payment plan offers, because at a time like right now, I'll be looking more for discounted prices as opposed to adjusted payment plans.
Yeah, for sure. Have you sold anything during the conflict?
No.
So I sold a small apartment, and I'm about to sell a fairly large off-plan deal. It's close to going through, but there's definitely activity in the market, and there's definitely investors looking to spend money.
Yeah.
The challenge is getting buyers who are realistic about, because a lot of the owners have made an awful lot of money over the last couple of years, and I don't think those guys are panicking, right?
No.
The people that are panicking are the investors that have bought, the overseas investors who have bought 1, 2, or 3 apartments on the hope that they're going to flip 2 or 3 on handover, and realize they might not be able to do that.
100%.
And that's where you're going to pick up. That's where you're going to pick up bargains, I believe.
100%.
So in that scenario, would you advise an investor with cash in the money now to buy, let's say, I hate to use the word distressed, but let's say distressed secondary off-plan investment that was handing over in the next 12, 24 months? Yeah.
I think there's definitely opportunities
depending
there.
On the project.
Depends on the project, depends on location, everything. It also goes back to what we discussed. It depends on the reason for buying.
Right.
Are they going to live in it in 5 years? Because then fine. Or are they going to live in it 4 or 5 years? Just to 100% pick up a good opportunity. Are you looking to flip it in the next 2 years? Then don't buy it. It comes back to digging down to what is actually in the client's mind.
You speak Farsi. Are you seeing other nationalities that you're working with have a different approach or a different perception of investing during this period?
Look, obviously every individual is slightly different, but we do typically use stereotypes to an extent in this industry, because you have to, right? People from different cultures typically think in a similar way.
Yeah.
And just going to our roadshows as an example, the investors who we met in Singapore, in Delhi, I've found personally those to be much more cautious investors. I think because there's more horror stories maybe that have happened in their countries in the past, they're much more cautious entering investments. Whereas if you come to someone who's a seasoned Dubai investor, I'm not saying they need to be from here, but they've spent a lot of time here, they've moved from Europe 10 years ago, whatever, they're much more kind of relaxed, and you offer them a project, bang, they can make a decision. Yeah. We're finding for example, again, the Singapore Roadshow who we did, they were very, very cautious.
Very cautious people, yeah.
They're long-term clients of ours who are going to need to work on.
Yeah.
And then when they finally get their head around it and they're fully comfortable, they'll make the move.
Yeah, so you got a couple of investment properties. You've got a renovation business. I mean, looking back, and what I was going to say, what would you do different? But you wouldn't need to do much different. I think it's been a good decision, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, moving to Dubai has single-handedly changed my life. There's no doubts about that in more ways that I can kind of even articulate on this podcast right now. So as for would I change much? Probably not, to be honest. I think even the bad times I've had, it's been important. You know, in retrospect, you always look back and you kind of like, okay, at the time it was a big struggle, but I'm talking about when I first moved here. There was some obviously dark times. There was some times when I was definitely struggling, both financially, mentally, all of the rest of it. Yeah, it's natural. But I probably wouldn't even change that.
So how did you get through those?
It goes back to that not having a plan B.
Yeah.
So if you move out here with a plan B and you fall into one of those ruts and you're struggling financially, you're struggling mentally, you
just have to dig deep.
If you have that plan B in mind, it's very easy to fall back and just say, oh, okay, I've given it a go. I've been here for 3 months, 6 months. And we see it happen all the time. People come, they run out of money, do whatever.
They have a little bit of success. They let it get to their head. They spend money. Like they're going to continue to have that success. And we all know that the property market is...
oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. It's starting...
What is the one thing that you would change?
Starting my social media when I first arrived here, because it's not that I didn't want to. I had a plan for it. I had a plan for even a podcast. And this is, believe it or not, one of the first I've ever done. Yeah. And 5 years ago, I was there saying, I'm going to start a podcast.
Yeah, I remember.
So, every day to you, I was like, I've got this idea for YouTube. Now I'm actually executing on that. I've got all of my socials in place. I've started making videos. I've started doing these podcasts. So
5 years too late.
Well, next best time is today. Same as buying property. But yeah, starting that from day one. If there's any new agents happen to be watching this, that is the one thing I would suggest. 100%. Because the day and age 100%. That we're in, social media wins, right? Anyone who's got a presence on there, whether you're saying you're chatting nonsense or not, the reality is it's getting eyeballs on you. People notice your face, your name, and they build trust.
You're putting your personality out there. You're showing your value and your expertise, and you are proving, and you're at the forefront of people's minds, right?
100%.
So I'm not big on social media, but I try and do as much as I can, and it pays off in dividends, huge returns I get from it.
100%. I'm curious, just when we talk about these agents, who comes to mind?
Matt Siddell for me is a classic example of somebody who has come into the industry. He's a very experienced property guy, but he's come into the industry and has just taken off with regards to social media.
Right?
Absolutely, and provides really valuable content. So I'm always going to say Matt because he's come to EXP and he's just absolutely flying. Yeah. There are obviously lots of really good agents out there that are we're all seeing regularly on our feeds. Yeah. And fair play to them. They're putting themselves out there and they are making a fortune.
Certainly.
Who would you say is your standout agent that is?
It's funny because I also have Matt in my mind because I think what he's done particularly with his chopper.
Yeah, it's so unique.
It's genius because nobody else. I've seen other people now following that trend.
Have you?
A couple. Yeah. And they do it well actually, to be fair, but I think it's a compliment to Matt if anything. But I think seeing that and seeing him just kind of give these aerial tours, I don't know if we can put it up as we're speaking about it, but it's genius. And then other than him, there's people, it's funny because I don't even know a lot of them personally, so I might say their names now and they're thinking, who's this guy? But that's the power of it, right? For example, Aidan. Boom.
Aidan,
there's Tris Taylor who...
Aidan was clever because he did very sort of face-to-camera talking while he's out and about, driving through the community. Yeah. And it's not rocket science, but it really worked for him.
Yeah. And it goes back to what he's like, there's Tris Taylor I met in the gym last week, I think I mentioned to you. There's
his content is really top notch. Yeah,
it's great. Offline Joss is another one. Yeah. He keeps on popping up on the feeds.
Well, that's because he does 3 videos a day.
6, I think.
Yeah.
But again, that's what you just need to pump this content out. And same as you were saying before, I think these guys I'm mentioning, they do get a lot of negative comments. I read them sometimes and there's a lot of people saying, oh, look at this clown, or this guy's waffling, it's absolute BS, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
one of our old colleagues, Ali.
Exactly. Yeah. You see, look at the views that he's getting. He gets very conflicting comments sometimes, but
That's because Ali likes to be a little bit controversial.
he likes to stir it up, doesn't he? He always has. But
Mr. Controversial.
That's in his nature. But it goes back to the point you were just making. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, but either way, it gets results. Like some people might be watching this podcast now thinking, a pair of absolute donuts.
Yeah.
You're always going to get that, but
certainly think that about you, yeah.
You have sympathy for the old man, I guess. No, but
middle-aged. Like.
You're going to be loved or you're going to be hated, but at the end of the day, you're always going to have your client base. So
it doesn't matter. It makes no odds.
Yeah. Put your personality out there.
So the advice to agents who are either struggling or not, but their advice is put themselves out there on social media.
100%. And just one last thing to caveat that is, it also then gives you the leverage and the power to make a decision like we did, which is to move to the likes of an EXP, because you then have your own personal brand as opposed to just relying on the brand of a company, which, as we said, beneficial at first, but I think over time, people outgrow that.
You know, you can have highs and lows very quickly in this market.
100%. 100%.
And it's very much a mindset game as well, right? So... amazing. Okay, Luke. Well, it's been great. Thank you for joining me. And if anybody wants to reach out to Luke, we'll put his contact details below. You're on social media. So this is Michael Magee. I've been standing in for Dave Allen for the Rebel Agent podcast. Thank you very much. And thank you, Luke.
Thank you very much, mate. It was a pleasure.